Hi, I'm Matthew Lolte Hepworth from Ask.Audio magazine, and as a companion to our review of the Steinberg UR12 audio interface, I want to show you just how easy it is to use the UR12 or UR12 with an iOS device. So I'm going to show you how to do that right now. So let's look at the components that I have here. I've only made one connection so far, and that is the output coming from the back of the UR12 into my recording device so that you'll be able to hear what I'm doing. And now let's take a look at the major pieces. First, we have an iPad Air 2. It's in this clam case, which is why you see this keyboard and it kind of looks like a notebook, but I'm not really going to be using this. It's just the iPad. And then I have the Steinberg UR12 interface. I have a USB cable. I have the Apple camera connection kit. This is a lightning-based connection kit, so it has a lightning connector on one end and a USB connector on the other. And then I have an external battery, because when you're using the UR12 in class-compliant mode for use with iPads, you're going to need to power it externally. And so I'm using this Jackery Giant Plus. This particular battery has a ton of power, and it has two outputs. A 2.1 amp output for fast charging iOS devices and other tablets and phablets and so forth. And it also has a 5 volt 1 amp output. And that's the one that I'm going to use to power the Steinberg UR12. So let's make that connection first. So I have a little cable here, which is just a stretchy cable. This is a USB-A to USB-B micro. And I'm going to make that connection now. So if you look on the back of the Steinberg interface, you're going to see that there's a switch that says power source. So when you're using it with an iPad, you're going to need to make sure that that switch is set towards that 5 volt DC port. And then you're going to connect that cable, that little mini USB cable, to the back of the interface. And then the other end, I'm going to plug into my battery. Like that. I'm going to make sure that the power on that battery is on. Now I'm going to make the USB connection between the iPad and the UR12. So I'm going to take my camera connection kit and this standard USB cable. I'm going to make the two of them one cable. And I'm going to plug this back to the iPad and then into the USB 2.0 port of the Steinberg. Now, when you make that connection, you'll see this little light flash on the front. That's the USB light. But as soon as it goes solid, that means that the connection has been made between the UR12 and the iPad. So since the power is coming from this battery through the 5 volt port, now all the data is going to flow from that USB 2.0 port. So now all we need to do is launch a music application. So I'm going to go into my music apps folder here. I'm going to call it my favorite, which is Cubasis, which is about $50 from the Apple App Store. And I'm going to plug my guitar in. So I've got my guitar and I've got a cable here. And so that's going to go into the high Z input. That's input number 2 on the front of the Steinberg interface. The Steinberg has a microphone input. So if I was using a microphone, I would plug it into the XLR input. But since this is a high impedance guitar, I'm going to plug that into the second input, which is the high Z input. And then I'm going to pick my guitar up here. Now I'm going to add a track to this project. Now, you'll notice that I didn't need to change any settings. That's because all of the audio that is built into the iPad has been bypassed by that connection going into a different audio interface. This audio interface sounds so much better. It's a 24-bit audio interface, so immediately the playback is going to sound really good. And so let's listen to this 4-track project that I have in Cubasis right now. So in this particular project, I'm going to add a new lead guitar track. So I'm going to hit the Add Audio Track button. I'm going to call it Lead Guitar. Now I am going to use my little keyboard here. Lead, G, G, E, R. And then I'm going to add some effects. So I'm going to add an Amplifier Simulator, and we'll go ahead and use this one. turn up the treble a little bit, turn up the gain a little bit. Now let's try and listen to the guitar. So I'm going to strum my guitar, and you'll notice something. We actually don't hear it coming through the UR12 yet. And that's because I haven't selected the right input for this new track. So I'm going to go to the Routing tab and assign it to the second input. Now, when I monitor enable that track, I get that guitar sound. Now, I like that guitar sound, but I am going to add a delay. That's a little rich for the amount of delay. And a little too much feedback. I'm going to crank that feedback back to about 10%. And now I'm ready to record. So this track is record enabled. I'm going to go ahead and hit the record button. Hit stop, play that back. Oops, need to go back to the beginning. So I've got the guitar track recorded. So that's how you can put an entire recording studio in a briefcase. Now let's take a look at some of the other apps that you can use with the UR12, and that is any iOS-compatible music app. So I'm going to go out of Cubasis and go into the Yamaha Mobile Sequencer. I haven't actually done anything in this app yet, so I'm just going to play the built-in demo. Now you'll notice I didn't have to do any configuring. It just knows to use the UR12 as its audio interface. And that's going to be true of any app that I call up. Let's just try a few others. Let's go into the Arturia iProfit, which is one of my favorite synths. And it just works too, and it sounds great. Let's try something else. Let's go into the Moog Animoog. And we'll just use the factory preset. And it just works too. Let's try one more. Let's go into the... Oh, let's try a couple more. Actually, here's the Morph Wiz. This is a Jordan Rudess plugin that's just great. And let's try one more. Let's go into the Peter Vogel CMI Pro, which is a Fairlight. We'll skip that startup. And let's load an instrument. So let's go to the disc, load up all the voices, go into the brass number 2. Actually, let's load up one of the signature Fairlight sounds, like the orchestral hit. So the beauty of using the UR12 as a class-compliant interface with an iPad is that it's just incredibly easy to get going. So that's how fast and easy it is to make music with an iPad and the Steinberg UR12 interface. Again, I'm Matthew Lolte Hepworth, and thanks for watching this video, and look for our review of the UR12 at AskAudioMag.com. Have a great day.